of 1922 when a horrifying discovery was made at a lonely farmstead in Bavaria, Germany. The farm was called Hinterkaifeck, a small holding hidden deep in the countryside, surrounded by dense woods and cut off from neighbors. Inside the barn and farmhouse, 6 people lay dead. The elderly farmer Andreas Gruber, his wife Cecilia, their widowed daughter Victoria, her 2 young children, and the family's maid. The manner of their deaths shocked the region and continues to haunt true crime history more than a century later. The story of Hinterkaifeck is one of eerie warnings, unexplainable signs, and unspeakable violence. To this day, no one knows for certain who killed the family or why. But the details left behind tell a tale of growing dread, of footsteps in the snow that led nowhere, of noises in the attic, and of lives snuffed out under mysterious circumstances. The Gruber family. Andreas Gruber was a harsh and deeply unpopular man in his community. Born in the mid-1800s, he had a reputation for cruelty and stubbornness. His wife, Cecilia, lived under his shadow, described by neighbors as worn down and weary. Their daughter, Victoria Gabriel, recently widowed after her husband's death in World War I, lived at the farm with her 2 children, 7-year-old Cecilia, named after her grandmother, and 2-year-old Josef. Behind the farm walls, secrets brewed. It was rumored Andreas had an abusive relationship with Victoria, and official records later showed he had been convicted of incest years earlier. Suspicion about Josef's parentage would haunt the case after the murders. Neighbors often kept their distance, but everyone knew the Grubers carried a dark reputation. Signs of something wrong. In the days before the murders, strange occurrences unsettled the farm. Andreas Gruber complained of footprints in the snow leading from the edge of the forest toward the house. No prints led back. He told neighbors about hearing footsteps in the attic at night, though he found nothing when he searched. A key to the farmhouse disappeared, and strange newspapers appeared that no one in the family had purchased. The maid at the time grew so frightened that she quit her job, telling friends the farm was haunted. Just hours before her death, the new maid, Maria Baumgartner, arrived at Hinterkaifeck for her first day of work. She would not survive the night. The night of the murders. On the evening of March 31st, 1922, darkness fell over Hinterkaifeck. At some point that night, the killer lured Andreas, his wife Victoria, and young Cecilia into the barn one by one. Each was struck down with a mattock, a farming tool similar to a pickaxe. The bodies were left piled together in the hay. Inside the farmhouse, the killer turned on the children. 2-year-old Joseph was murdered in his cot, while the maid Maria was found slain in her bedroom. The brutality shocked investigators. Each blow was deliberate, merciless, and personal. 7-year-old Cecilia had torn out chunks of her own hair in terror before she died. A killer who stayed. What made the case even more disturbing was what happened after. Evidence suggested the murderer stayed on the farm for several days after the killings. The cattle were fed, the chimney smoked from fires lit in the hearth, and meals were taken from the kitchen. Neighbors reported seeing smoke and assumed the family was busy at work. In reality, they were already dead. Days passed before neighbors became alarmed. Mail and school absences raised suspicion, and finally, a search party arrived at the farm. They found the bodies decomposing in the barn, their faces covered with hay. What they uncovered would become one of Germany's darkest unsolved crimes. The investigation. Police from nearby Munich descended on Hinterkaifeck, but the scene was chaotic. Neighbors had trampled through the farm before authorities arrived, destroying potential evidence. Autopsies were conducted in the barn itself, contaminating more clues. Dozens of suspects were questioned, from vagrants to local residents. One name that stood out was Lorenz Schlittenbauer, a neighbor who had once been romantically involved with Victoria. He knew the layout of the farm and was among the first to discover the bodies. His behavior raised suspicion. Some claimed he moved the corpses without reason. Others whispered that he seemed too calm. Yet no evidence tied him directly to the murders. Unanswered questions. Theories swirled. Some believed the killer was a stranger passing through, hiding in the attic before striking. Others thought the motive was greed, though nothing significant was stolen. The incest rumors cast suspicion on Andreas, with speculation that a family dispute spiraled into violence. But with the entire household dead, no answers emerged. There were also chilling signs of calculation. The footprints in the snow, the missing key, the fed cattle. All suggested someone planned the killings carefully. The idea that the murderer may have lived among the family, watching and waiting, filled neighbors with dread. The legacy of Hinterkaifeck. The farmhouse stood empty for a year after the murders, then was torn down. Visitors reported eerie feelings, as though the air still carried the memory of what had happened there. In 1923, a memorial shrine was erected near the site, where it stands to this day. The murders remain unsolved. Over the decades, new theories emerged, from escaped prisoners of war to secret lovers, but none were proven. In 2007, German police reopened the case with modern forensics, but the passage of time had erased any hope of certainty. The file was closed without resolution. Why it still haunts us. The Hinterkaifeck murders endure because they touch on our deepest fears. The idea that evil can hide in plain sight, that we are never truly safe in our homes, that secrets fester in silence. The image of footsteps leading into the farm but not away, of a killer calmly feeding cattle above the bodies, of a terrified child tearing her hair in fear. These are fragments of horror that linger through the decades. More than 100 years later, Hinterkaifeck remains one of the world's most haunting unsolved crimes. It is not just a mystery of who killed the Gruber family. It is a reminder of the shadows that can fall over ordinary lives, and of the darkness humanity is capable of.